Hi there, Souls Collectors, and welcome to another Bossk Bounty video, and welcome to episode 265 of Ask Boss Bounty. This is the weekly Q&A series that drops every Sunday, where I take your questions from the comment section below and do my best to answer them. So if you do have a question for next week's episode and you want to be featured in the video, then please leave that question in the comment section of this video. The more questions I get, the more we can carry on this series. If you do happen to enjoy the video, hit the like button down below, subscribe if you are new. And before we get on to this week's questions, I am super excited to let you know about another giveaway I am doing. I have partnered again with Whatnot, which is an amazing destination for purchasing action figures, Lego, collectible cards, all sorts of other collectibles. There is loads of stuff on there. I've personally been having quite a lot of fun with the app, recently buying a variant of VC 123 that I needed. That's the Walmart exclusive Mimbam Stormtrooper. And I also bought some graded TVC from a seller here in the UK. I also joined in on a seller's live stream and purchased a couple of wrestling figures for my son that he needed. And in that stream, I was lucky enough to win one of their small giveaways, which was awesome. So all in all, it's been a lot of fun using the app. So on to the giveaway. I will be giving away this brand new Anakin Skywalker 3-pack that's literally just been released. But that's not all. I will separately be giving away this graded VC 113 Republic Trooper from the Old Republic, which has been graded 95 by UKG. Both of these I am happy to post anywhere in the world. To win the Anakin Skywalker set, all you need to do is sign up to Whatnot using my referral link, which is both in the description and the pinned comment of this video. Then post your Whatnot username in the comment section of this video. But that's not all. When you sign up, you will automatically receive £10 or $15, depending on where you are, to spend on the app, whether that be something from my list or any other seller. I currently have over 40 items listed, which are available at a discount to you if you use your Whatnot credit. There is even a brand new loose Balin skull on there, so if you're in the UK, you may want to be quick and snag that one before anything else. And I just want to say a big thank you to anybody that has purchased off me on Whatnot already. One person actually commented on a Facebook group that they were quite happy with it, so that's awesome. So thank you so much for the purchase. And anyone that signs up via my link and spends their credit on the app will automatically be entered in the giveaway for the Old Republic Commando. This is also open to anyone that signed up on my previous Whatnot giveaway. All you need to do is purchase something on the app using your free £10 or $15 credit. If you've already signed up and made a purchase, have no fear, you still will be eligible. The giveaway will run for 2 weeks, and the winners will be announced on my Ask Bossk Bounty video on Sunday, the 22nd of June. So good luck, everybody. And with all that being said, let's get on to the first question, and it's from Ponda Poodoo. And he says, "Hi BB, great video as always. Question for next week. Gammy guards are reissued as a Target exclusive. As a French collector, I scouted Hasbro Pulse and European vendors, but could not find them yet anywhere. Do you think we have a chance to get them in Europe or the UK? Or on a 4-pack release? Thanks." So yes, it has been a bit of a strange week for the vintage collection with some random reveals, not via a live stream or anything like that. But then again, they are just reissues, so they didn't really sort of warrant their own live stream. And yes, in America, it does seem that Bomb Vimdim, the Gamorrean Guard, and Bib Fortuna are all Target exclusives. Now, over here in the UK, and I'm guessing in Europe, Bomb Vimdim is available on Star Action Figures, In Demand Toys, and Hasbro Pulse, and any other place that you like to pick up your action figures. But the Gamorrean Guard and Bib Fortuna are not. Now, whether they will be available in the future, I can't say for sure. But if we look at the Lieutenant Callahan figure, for example, at one point that was not going to be available in the UK, and it now is. You can now pre-order Lieutenant Callahan from Star Action Figures, for example. So hopefully that will be the same case with the Gamorrean Guard and Bib Fortuna. But I would like to take this opportunity to talk about these releases in general, because I feel that Bomb Vimdim is a good re-release. Basically, it's, you know, a Cantina alien. The Cantina's coming. It's one that some people out there may not have. I would say it wasn't one of the most expensive figures on the secondary market necessarily, but I still feel it's a good release. And you know, for all you variant hunters out there, they are moving the warning sticker down to the bottom of the card so that we get a nice view of that logo there. Now the Gamorrean Guard is completely different, and it's different because of the price point. Target currently have that figure up for $24.99, which is a deluxe price. Now, I'm not going to moan about the fact that we're getting the Gamorrean Guard again. It is, you know, a highly requested figure, even though it was re-released in 2019. I don't think the quantities were there, and even myself could do with another couple of Gamorrean Guards. I've only got maybe 2 loose Gamorrean Guards in my display, so happy for the Gamorrean Guard to be reissued. But for $24.99 deluxe price, that seems a little bit odd to me. I mean, it wouldn't be the first time that Target have got their pricing wrong, and I do hope that that is the case, because there's no way in this world the Gamorrean Guard should be a deluxe figure. It's been released 3 times previously, I think, back in TVC 1.0. Then he was included in the Black Series Jabba set, I believe, Black Series 3.75. And then, of course, in 2019, as I mentioned, he was reissued again in the Vintage Collection. Now, once again, it will be a variant card. I would imagine the back will be slightly different, and you know, the front will be ever so slightly different to the 2 previous releases, so there will be that factor. But for $24.99, there's got to be an issue there. It's a sculpt they've already got the tooling for, they've already got the molds for. It's an easy one for them to do. I see no reason why it should be $24.99. Going back to your original question, you know, will it be available in the UK and Europe? You know, I hope so. I would imagine so. It just might take a little bit of time for Hasbro to get their ship in order to make sure that we get the stock over here too. But it remains to be seen. Mulkule says, hey BB, great video. I love seeing your original 96 display in the background of your videos. Of all the original 96 figures not in TVC yet, which one would you like to see Hasbro add to the Vintage Collection line most? Keep up the great work. All right then, so to answer that question, we've got the cabinet here. I do apologize about the glare, but it's actually quite a difficult question to answer, because, you know, what do I choose? Do I go for something that's going to help my collection in terms of my sort of how I display things? I'm focusing on the Ugnaught there. We have the playset that goes with the Ugnaughts, and we are missing the Ugnaughts. So that is a figure from the original 96 that we desperately need. Or if I move along, you know, we've got Han in his Hoth gear there. We've got some of the bounty hunters. So it's actually really difficult to choose. I think I did also have Chief Chirper on my top 25 list at some point as well. Or do I choose a figure that's never been made since the Kenner days, which is the Simalu right there? So it is really difficult to choose. We've got the Attack Driver there as well, which is an awesome card back for the original 96. So, man, I'm not too sure if I could actually choose one of those, but probably maybe one of those 4 or 5 that I've actually talked about there. Focusing on the Ugnaught, man, I'm pulled towards the Ugnaught. I really do feel that that play set that we got, the carbon freezing chamber, that was missing the Ugnaughts, man. So I'm going to say the Ugnaught. Daffyd says, question for next week. I suspect next year's theme will be more prequel related, but how would you like Order 66 2-packs using those boxes? We could get Jedi General and Clone Commander. It'd mean all of the clones are mostly repaints, saving costs for the new molds the Jedi would need, which hopefully would enable characters like Qui-Gon who really need a new figure. And then we can dream about new Jedi Council playset that can connect together, maybe Temple Guard packing. So yeah, absolutely. If next year is more centered around the prequel era, then I really do hope that a lot of that is geared towards Revenge of the Sith. If you look at Revenge of the Sith, especially in TVC 2.0, it is severely lacking. I think we might only even have one carded release of a Revenge of the Sith figure at this moment in time in TVC 2.0. Your idea about Order 66 2-packs is a very good one. Obviously, it's something they have done before. I think this was the 30th anniversary, wasn't it, when we got all of these Order 66 2-packs here. You got a Jedi with a clone. Often you got a Sith with the clone as well. I think you got Palpatine, for example, with a clone commander. So yeah, it's a very, very good idea. But I wouldn't really go for something like this in terms of the packaging. I would sort of stick to the Vintage Collection if possible, with, you know, 2 carded figures in something like this. You know, I've mentioned about pilots and their astromech droids being on 2 carded 2-packs, which would be flipping awesome. But yeah, absolutely, a clone commander and his Jedi, or whichever way round that is a pretty solid idea as well. And hopefully they do that, man. Because as you say, the Clone Trooper part of it is easy, right? You know, they can just use those, repaint them, add pauldrons where necessary, all that kind of thing. With the Jedis, it might be a little bit different, but some of them can share some parts across the figures, no doubt. So all for that, buddy. Great idea. The Donut Van says, hey, boss, question for next week. Do you think we'll ever see any more sequel representation in TVC? I'd love any playset or vehicle to put in the emptiest shelf in my cabinet. I've got to say, it's looking unlikely for the foreseeable future, you know, in terms of getting anything substantial from the sequel trilogy. At the end of the day, you know, they talk about it being the world building line, not the character line. So they can't just release like one figure, basically. That'll just be ridiculous. If they're going to do anything for any of the sequel movies, they've got to do it in, you know, some sort of decent way. They've got to release like, I don't know, 3 or 4 figures or whatever. And for that reason, I just don't see it happening. You know, they've got so much more they want to do. We're just talking about prequel. That is underrepresented in the vintage collection, and you know, it's looking likely maybe that next year we might see a bit more of that, hopefully. You know, they've got Andor to do, they've got Rogue One to do, they've got so much more that they've got to do. The sequel trilogy just seems to be like in the rear view mirror at this point in time. Beast of Viper Squad, who is a new channel member, so thank you so much for that, buddy. Links are in the description below if you want to become a member on YouTube or Patreon. And he says, hi boss, great show as always. 2 questions for next week. Considering their size, how would you feel about a 4-pack of the kids from Skeleton Crew? Given that a child mold will be limited reuse for Hasbro, I think selling as a 4-pack might be a safer option for them. I think it would do well since Skeleton Crew was well received by fans, and so far we've only had 1 figure from the show. And do you think it would be better for Hasbro to release figures closer to when the shows air and is still fresh in the fans' minds, like Carson Taver first appeared in Mando Season 1, and that was in 2019, and we are only just getting him now? Feel Skeleton Crew 4-pack and other characters from that show would sell better now than in 6 years. Thanks, get well soon. So yeah, the second part of your question, I totally agree with that. You know, the closer to the show, the better. You've got that sort of hype around it, and you know, if you're getting figures from a show that's airing at the time, then that's great. There is an advantage to waiting, because then you do kind of get the figures in their correct form. If you look at Baylan Skoll, for example, in the Black Series, he is not tall enough, or Shin Hati is too tall. One of the way round, they've got it wrong anyway, and in the vintage collection, they've corrected that. So, and there's other examples of that as well, right? You've got Queel, for example, IG-11 from The Mandalorian. Both of those are more accurate to the source material, but obviously we're made to wait. And in Queel's case, it wasn't a great seller purely because we had to wait, and that's a bit of a shame. In terms of the Skeleton Crew, I feel the example that you've given there is, in my opinion, probably the best way to service getting those kids out in the line. A 4-pack of them would be probably the best way to do it. I could see some of them peg warming if they were just single releases on the pegs, and that's just my opinion, but I can see that happening. You know, a 4-pack, you can get them all at once. That's probably the best way to do it. Charlie Howard says, hey BB, glad you're all recovered. Yeah, I'm getting there, buddy, slowly getting there. He says, question for next week, do you think we'll ever get a Darth Nihilus in TVC? Black Series has one, so I believe that increases the chances. Usually it would increase the chances. However, I do feel that the Darth Nihilus that they released in the Black Series would not be good enough for the vintage collection at this point in time. It was a Gaming Greats figure, which means it would potentially have a lot of reuse, and I think it did. I mean, I'm not schooled totally with what the Black Series does, but essentially I do believe that they used a lot of the Darth Maul figure for that Darth Nihilus, and we definitely can't have that in the vintage collection. They can't reuse any of this for a Darth Nihilus figure. We desperately need a new Darth Maul, and therefore if they did that and then they could get any reuse from that figure, then absolutely fine. But I feel to get a Darth Nihilus out in the vintage collection now, it'd have to be all new, whether that's an all new from using Darth Maul or an all new Darth Nihilus. Whichever way round, that's what needs to be done. I don't feel there's anything they can use to get a Darth Nihilus out there that's going to be any good. GA says, hey BB, I count 25 still to be done before Hasbro finishes the 96. Hypothetical question for next week. Assuming Hasbro get this 25 down to say 10 over the next few years, could we expect to get a Finish the 96 HasLab to get the final figures of this illustrious club? This might be how we get tricky releases requiring perhaps all new tooling like a Manaman 21B and EV99. Glad you're on the mend. So yeah, regarding the topic of figure dream packs via HasLab, I still feel it's something that they should be at least sort of discussing in their meetings at Hasbro. You know, something they should be considering, and I'm pretty sure it is. I mean, we've been going on about it in the community for a long time now. You know, ever since HasLab's been around, really, we've sort of said, you know, this is maybe a good way that you can get groups of characters out, ones that maybe wouldn't sell that well at retail. You know, you've talked about a Man there, 21B. These are ones that possibly they feel, you know, the juice isn't worth the squeeze, basically. You know, the amount of money that they've got to put in to developing those figures, maybe they're not going to get the sales volume that they want out of those, basically, and maybe a figure dream pack is the way that they'd have to do that. I don't really know why they haven't done it already, whether there's some sort of blockers, you know, and reasons why that they can't. I wish that they would just come out and sort of discuss it with the community, if I'm honest. But for sure, if they got down to 10 for the finish of the 96, and that could potentially be something they could look at. I honestly can't see it happening, though, to be honest. It's like saying, hey, you guys that are collecting just the original 96, here's a way that we can service that for you and get you out of collecting, and you'll never buy anything from us again because you're done. I can't see them doing that, personally. Anatar, Lord of Gifts, says, hey, boss, glad to hear you're feeling better. My question for next week is, which character from Andor would you give higher priority to be in the vintage collection? Mon Mothma, Luthen Rael, or Saw Gerrera? Also, if ever you have the time, I would highly recommend playing Jedi Survivor, since you've mentioned that you haven't played it yet. I definitely plan to, that is for sure. And that question is a really unfair question, my friend. I mean, how can you make me pick between those three? We need all of those three for different reasons, not just Andor itself, but if you take Saw Gerrera, for example, you've got, you know, his appearance in Rogue One, Luthen just for being pretty much one of the best characters all through both seasons of Andor, and Mon Mothma because she's in multiple different sort of medias and things like that, namely Return of the Jedi as well, which is the sort of look for her that I'd want first and foremost. Oh man, if you're going to press me though, I think I'd have to go with Luthen. I feel that that's a character we desperately need in the vintage collection. He was just too good all the way through and is now one of my all-time favorite Star Wars characters, so it has to be Luthen. Reno AZ says, great video, BB, glad you're feeling better. Question for next week, how do you plan on displaying the HasLab Cantina? I bought a 42 by 56 inch coffee table to display the Deluxe Cantina along with a land speeder, 2 Banthas, 2 Dewbacks and 2 Rontos. Well, I've got to say I'm super jealous of that setup. That will look absolutely awesome. You'll be able to display the full Deluxe Cantina. That isn't something that I'm going to be able to do, basically. I'm going to be able to sort of display the bar and maybe 2 or 3 of the alcoves, and then I might display the outside of the cantina next to the Streets of Mos Eisley playset to have sort of like a street scene separately, basically. I think that's how I'm going to do it. I kind of want some of the key scenes of the cantina, you know, the bar area with some of the characters hanging around, and then some of the booths as well with, you know, obviously the Greedo and Han Solo standoff, Hammerhead, all that kind of thing. Pretty much how I'm going to be doing it, but I can't say for certain until I get it all in hand and how I'm going to do that, because by all accounts it is going to be quite a big footprint if you display the whole thing sort of top down, but you know, we'll have to wait and see once we get it. Obviously I'm going to review it in its entirety. We'll have to just wait and see, and it's exciting, right? Can't wait. Steve DeBersa says, hi boss, great show and hope you have made a full recovery now. Question for next week, given the announcement from Target of the re-release of the 3 vintage collection figures including Bom Vimdum, are there any other figures you would like to see re-released over the next year? All the best, Steve. So in general, I'm not like a huge fan of re-releases. You know, for people that have already got them, it's not that exciting, right? I mean, obviously we want to get new people into the line, so you do have to do these like reissues from time to time. What I don't like about reissuing is that you're often reissuing a figure that's not up to today's standard. You know, you're reissuing a figure from 10, 15 years ago. Now, Bom Vimdum is a Cantina alien. He's just going to be standing there. He doesn't need sort of like Jedi articulation. So for that one, I'm okay with. But in the past, we have seen them reissue figures that are blatantly not up to today's standard, and they haven't done very well at all. And they've just angered people, basically. They've upset people in the community, and you really don't sort of want that. What I would prefer them to do really for the Cantina aliens, of course, you know, we've got Bom Vimdum here, but there are Cantina aliens from the Legacy collection, you know, Herchek Kalfas, for example, which again has got swivel hips. I would kind of prefer them to go back to those and reissue those. But for me, I do believe that they don't have those molds anymore, and that's why we haven't got them. I mean, why wouldn't they have done that if they could? I think they would. So I don't believe that they can. Shannon Patrat says, greeting Bossk. I recently picked up a twin pod cloud car with 2 TVC Bespin pilots included for a great deal. This vehicle was originally released around the time of the Legacy Collection era of Star Wars collecting, I believe, and I absolutely love it. I even went back and watched your review of this vehicle. I feel the Legacy Collection might have been a true golden age of Star Wars collecting, with the diversity of characters, vehicles, accessories, and playsets that were released. Question for next week: what is your favourite era of collecting, and do you feel Star Wars will ever reach that level of popularity again? So there is absolutely no doubt that the Legacy Collection was a great era. I mean, I wasn't actually actively buying and collecting Star Wars figures, but I've gone back and sort of picked up a lot of them. There was a lot of great vehicles around. Of course, it was the era of the Clone Wars as well, so there was a lot of sort of things going on in Lego. Often people that collect Lego think that that era was the greatest era for Lego Star Wars as well. So when it comes to the Legacy Collection, you had a really good range of, figures, characters, you had countless vehicles. And the other great thing is that it was all in stores. So you could go into a store and it was all there laid out for you, big displays. And unfortunately, that just isn't the case anymore. Kids haven't just moved on from Star Wars, they've moved on from all sorts of toys. They're much more interested in their phones and iPads and their apps and games and video games and things like that. It's just a fact of life. And that is why the toy aisles in general don't have as many toys down them anymore. Or the toy aisles just aren't as big as they once were. And, especially if you go back to my era when I was buying toys as a kid, man, it was just amazing. You had whole shops which are just toy shops. So I think you're right, the Legacy Collection is probably a really great era, but quite honestly, even though you can't really pick them up in stores too much these days, I honestly believe the Vintage Collection is really good at the moment. You're getting all sorts of different kinds of releases, you're getting vehicles, you're getting 3-packs, you're getting carded 4-packs, we're getting 2-packs, we're getting creatures again, we're getting vehicles, we're getting play sets. There's lots of different variety in the Vintage Collection at the moment. Of course, we'd always want more, and we'd always want more new characters in time for when the shows and the movies are on. Take Andor, for example. I'd love more Andor figures at this moment in time. We're just not getting it. But in general, 2025 up until now has been a pretty good year for the Vintage Collection. So I'm not too worried about that. In terms of Star Wars itself reaching that level of popularity again, I feel it's a difficult thing, right? Because the original trilogy was absolutely huge. It changed cinema. You've got the prequel era with it coming back and bringing in a whole new bunch of fans. The Clone Wars was really successful. I just feel that the audience might have shrunk just a little bit. You've got the legacy fans, we're sort of still there. But then again, the sequel trilogy made a lot of money, did it not? I mean, a lot of people went to see it. Whether, us as legacy fans are overly happy with it is another matter. But, there are people out there that have grown up with the sequel trilogy, and maybe they're going to be the collectors and fans of the future. I mean, they probably will be. So it's very difficult to say from somebody that's grown up with the original trilogy and, I like certain things that they release. It's very difficult to sort of talk about the popularity as a whole. If you look at Star Wars Celebration, it was packed once again, wasn't it? Hugely popular. Mando Max says, hello BB, question for next week. If when Hasbro get round to finishing the 96, how do you think they would make Ghost Anakin? Would they keep it with the likeness of Sebastian Shaw, like the Kenner one, or the likeness of Hayden Christensen? Well, buddy, I don't see any reason why they can't do both. Why can they not do both? It's the same body, just do a head swap. Just include both heads. I see no reason why they can't do that. We're getting figures now with like swappable hands and lightning effect hands and things like that. Why not include a swappable head? And then you keep everybody happy, don't you? The issue of the card back would be, a question which one they would go for. Could they do 2 releases of it maybe? We'll have to wait and see whether they even do a Ghost Anakin at all. But I see no reason why they can't do 2 heads. Paul Nair says, hi Tim, hope you're well. Question next week. This is really about whether you have any idea about the state of collecting in the UK. Been a long time supporter of Star action figures for the majority of my TVC for years, but they don't seem to be getting stocks of the Gamorrean Guard or Bib Fortuna as of today, or Pulse for that matter, and on their Facebook page seem very down on the state of collecting here, that it sounds almost terminal. Just a bit concerned really, and wondered if you had any thoughts. Thanks for all and best wishes. So at the end of the day, a person that sells action figures is probably going to have more insight than than me in terms of, you know, how sales are going and things like that. What I would say is that the UK is only a part of the overall market, right? You've got markets all around the world, and the biggest one in the US. And to me, it looks like things are still pretty popular. I mean, things are selling out. People are moaning that they couldn't get things for the May the 4th releases, which is something that definitely should not happen. And I'm hoping that more stock of those will become available. But, you know, if you look on Amazon, figures sell out. If you look on Pulse, figures sell out. So things sell out for the vintage collection still. So with the state of it being terminal over here, that might be just something that, you know, he's talking about the UK market maybe. And as I say, maybe Star Action figures have seen sales decline from when the vintage collection came back to now. And, you know, Hasbro aren't not at fault here. They have contributed to that, if that is the case. You know, with the thinner card stock and then the damage to the cards and the bubble rub, and, you know, there's been countless things that they should have got sorted a long time ago, and maybe that has contributed to people leaving the hobby. But I would say, if you look at the Facebook groups, there's still lots of people active in the Facebook groups. There's, as I say, things selling out in the US. So it's not something that I can really comment on, as I say, though, because I'm just a collector like you, buddy. All right then, guys, that's it for this week's video. Don't forget to leave your questions for next week's episode in the comment section below, and also enter the giveaway if you want to be within a chance of winning the Anakin 3-pack and that graded Republic Trooper. If you haven't already, check out my review of the Armored Commando, which is on the channel right now. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you to my Patreon supporters and channel members, as always, for your extra support. It is greatly appreciated. Thanks for watching, everybody, and we shall see you on the next one.